Hello. In this video, we'll learn an English sentence together. First, I'll read it slowly. Please listen carefully and try to repeat after me. This will help you with your pronunciation and build your confidence. Let's begin. Although the sociologists' grand theory initially dismissed as overly deterministic and reductionist, gradually gained traction as empirical evidence accumulated, prompting a reevaluation of long-held assumptions about the interplay between structure and agency in social life. Although the sociologist's grand theory, initially dismissed as overly deterministic and reductionist, gradually gained traction as empirical evidence accumulated, prompting a re-evaluation of long-held assumptions about the interplay between structure and agency in social life. Alright, let's take a fun journey into this English sentence. Although the sociologist's grand theory, initially dismissed as overly deterministic and reductionist, gradually gained traction as empirical evidence accumulated, prompting a re-evaluation of long-held assumptions about the interplay between structure and agency in social life. It sounds a bit complicated, doesn't it? No worries, we'll break it down together. The first thing we need to understand is the overall meaning of the sentence. This sentence is telling us that a big idea from a sociologist, or someone who studies society, was first rejected because it seemed too simple and deterministic, which means it didn't allow for any changes or flexibility. But, as more real-world evidence piled up, people started to pay attention to this theory. This led them to rethink some of their old ideas about how structure, like rules and systems, and agency, the ability to make our own choices, interact in our social lives. Now, let's go through the sentence word by word. Although is a word we use to introduce a statement that makes the main part of the sentence a bit surprising. The sociologist's grand theory is talking about a big idea from someone who studies society. Initially dismissed as overly deterministic and reductionist, means it was first rejected for being too simple and not flexible. Gradually gained traction means slowly. It started to get attention, and as empirical evidence accumulated, means as more and more real-world data was collected. Prompting is a way of saying this led to a re-evaluation or a second look at long-held assumptions or old ideas about the interplay between structure and agency in social life, or about how rules/systems and our ability to make choices interact in our social lives. In terms of sentence structure, we start with although to introduce a contrast. The main part of the sentence, the sociologist's grand theory, is then broken up by two phrases that add extra information initially dismissed, and as empirical evidence accumulated. Finally, prompting a re-evaluation tells us the outcome of the main part of the sentence. This sentence is a bit formal and complex, so you might not hear it in everyday conversation, but it could certainly come up in a university lecture or an article about sociology. It's a great example of how we can pack a lot of information into one sentence in English, and how we can use words like although and phrases and commas to add extra details. So there you have it. I hope that helps clear things up. Remember, understanding complex sentences like this one is a journey, so don't worry if it doesn't all make sense at first. Keep practicing, and you'll get there.